Hey, good morning, guys. A little cold here in sunny Tampa this morning, but today I figured we would talk about one of the cases that I just saw this week, as we usually do, kind of look at things that we see on a regular basis so that we can be a better resource for people who may be in this same type of situation. So this week we saw a patient, nice lady that was in her 60s, mid-60s, Hector, is that right? And, we go through our exam, as you know. At this point, we're always looking for really things that are going to compete with or get in the way of or be obstacles to getting to 100 with all your teeth. And we've become very good at this point. It's the art and the science of looking at these subtleties and really knowing for that particular individual if these things that are not checked on the list are actually a concern for this patient. Because it's a list for some point, like a pilot has a list to check off before they fly. And then at some point too, even if something doesn't meet the criteria, it may not necessarily be a problem for this patient, take in mind, right? So there's that part of it that is a judgment call as well. So for this nice lady, came in and we look at her concerns, what she wants, and part of what she wanted and what she was concerned about, and it's interesting for everybody, their idiosyncrasies. But one of the concerns that she had was she had some problems with some past crowns where they just couldn't get the temporary to stay on. So it's interesting that, it is fairly common that a temporary will come off. For this particular lady, she had the temporary come off so many times, she was just really gun shy about getting another temporary on, wasn't she, Hector? It was really a hot button for her. She's like, I do not want to have to be in a temporary again. I want a same-day crown. And, as we start looking at things and putting two and two together, I could see, some of the problems that she may have had with keeping a temporary on. And we kind of got past some of those obstacles and had a strategy of how to avoid one of her chief concerns, and that's a whole nother story, another blog. But as we went on, one of the other main things that she wanted was she was really concerned about some teeth that she was missing and replacing those teeth. And as we looked around, she, like a lot of people at 65, had accumulated a lot of dentistry, and a lot of that dentistry was done, I would say, in an incomplete way. So what I talk about is taking one step forward and trying to keep moving in that direction as opposed to taking one step forward and two steps back. For this particular lady, she had gotten dentistry done that I don't know what the circumstances were, but the dentistry wasn't complete. In other words, new dentistry that she had already had problems. So now she's in a situation where she has to replace new dentistry. When I say new dentistry, I mean within a couple of years. Replace new dentistry before we can even get to some of the new problems that we found. We have to retread, go back, and replace a lot of things that she has already paid for, which is difficult. So one of the biggest things that was going to keep her from getting to 100 with all her teeth was, first of all, what falls under biology. New decay or decay under existing dentistry. And as we go down the line, the other thing was, it was a concern of replacing the missing teeth. And then she had other areas that didn't bother her as much because it was missing like single teeth in the middle that didn't show so much, that she didn't seem to have a concern about. So if we could talk a little bit about these things, it's not really for the aesthetic concern that a missing tooth will bring about. Although form does follow function, and as I'm watching her speak, I didn't like the way it looked, which will cue your mind to something needs to be done about that. And I guess what the patient would have to think about would be, why would I go through the expense and time of replacing a single tooth? Why would I want to subject myself to that? Because really, we know nowadays that when you're looking at replacing a single tooth, although you could do a bridge where you take the tooth on either side and crown those teeth and stick a tooth in the middle, which is a bridge, that's not what we do anymore. We do a single implant. And I think a single implant, what comes to mind is pain or expense or time. And so what Hector and I and Mark try to do is get the patient to understand why that would be in her best interest to do this. And so again, what happens if the form is off, missing a tooth? It's going to put more stress on the existing teeth that are there, period. And it will start to alter the form of all the existing teeth. So if one of the things on her list is, I want my smile to be better, it can be a problem to do that if we're missing teeth, because the likelihood of her chipping up new crowns in the front of the mouth are very high, because now your chewing is different when you're missing a tooth. So if I take into account, for me, if I get, like, let's say I bite my lip and I get a little ulcer on my lip, and it hurts if I have to move over there and then I have to start chewing on the other side of my mouth. I don't know if anybody's experienced something like that, but everything changes in your mouth. The dynamics of the way things are processed, food is processed, the way you chew, the way you posture, the way you just close your mouth changes if you're trying to avoid a spot. Now, this happens naturally with somebody that's missing a tooth, but it becomes subconscious at that point. You've been doing it so long, you don't really realize how much it's changed the pattern of chewing. But guess what? When we look at your teeth, we can see that. I often talk about it like wear, traffic areas, and carpet. So think about that. When you see a well-worn path, it indicates that that is where the traffic is going. When we look at your photos, and we're looking at the photos together, it's wear facets that would indicate traffic patterns on the teeth. These traffic patterns on the teeth, if you're missing teeth, they certainly become pathologic, meaning that you're going to get traffic patterns on areas that are your aesthetic teeth, teeth that make your smile. When they start to get worn, it starts to look aged, it starts to look like it's in dysfunction, and it can lead to chipping and breaking and chunking. And in particular, if you've had dentistry on your front teeth, let's just say the little tooth here, right here, that's a lateral, that we call the prima donna, traffic patterns on that tooth, then you have a big problem, because then you can break those teeth off of the gum line. So you see what I'm saying? It literally is a domino effect that leads to dysfunction, that leads to issues of longevity, and puts you more at risk. It's unpredictable. And this is a perfect case in point of things that would keep you to get to 100 with all your teeth. And if you're in this situation, and many people are, then you'd make you understand why you might want to spend the money and time to replace a single missing tooth. And in this case, tooth on the side of premolar that you may be able to guard when you smile, even though it does show in your head, it doesn't, but it certainly does show. But more than that, it contributes to dysfunction and to unpredictability.